Welcome to Charlotte's Web. You're really caught in it now. Today, I am going to do a tier list. This is something that the Gen Z does, and I have seen on the internet, and I'm going to give a try so I don't age out of my job. Okay, we're going to rank contestants from season 6 of Love is Blind. If you couldn't tell, I'm sitting in a pod. Just kidding, haha, I would never ever do that. We're going to rank contestants from Love is Blind as to whether I would want them representing me in court or not. And when I say court, I don't mean like for murder or anything really, really bad. I mean like a light white collar crime, like maybe slight insider trading or a little bit of tax evasion, neither of which I do. Disclaimer, in real life, I am very law abiding. I just got all my tax forms to my accountant. Thank you. I'm very grown up. Let's get into it. In order to rank these people, you got to know what the tiers are. Can't do a tier list without the tiers, and I am not doing anything as boring as blah, 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 blah. But you might have noticed we start with S. S tier? That, for some reason, is the best one. When Gen Z makes tier lists, it's like S tier, and then it goes to A, even though S is objectively later in the alphabet than the letter A. But what do I know? I am a almost 35-year-old washed-up millennial who is just trying to keep up with the kids. So under S tier, I have a category that I'm calling Elle Woods. She is the lawyer who was in Legally Blonde. Reese Witherspoon played her. She's the one who says, what? Like, it's hard. You know who she is. The only reason that she's below S tier is because I don't think she's been practicing law for a while, because that movie came out when I still lived with my parents. The next tier is a tier that I am calling reminds me of the lawyer who got me out of trouble in college. I may or may not elaborate on that as this video goes on. After that, we've got what I'm calling a 50-50 chance. I'm probably being too nice to these people. I probably should have been like, anybody after Elle Woods would not get me acquitted, but we'll see how this goes. After that, I have a category I am calling Would Sabotage Us Both. I think anybody who watches the show knows who's going to be in that one. Then the last category is called Send Me Right to Jail. It also could have been called the Chiefsaholic Lawyer. Have you seen that? I'd seen the video and I was like, I have no idea what this is about. But here's what this lawyer said.
But today, Xavier stepped into the pressure. He took responsibility for his actions. He stood up in court, humble and repentant, and admitted what he had done.
He is a lawyer of a guy who is wearing a wolf mask to Chiefs games and then wearing the same wolf mask to rob banks. Some galaxy brain stuff, folks. His lawyer does not seem like somebody I would want to pay any money. We have producer Thomas in the control room who's going to help me out and surprise me. Whoa, there they all are with who I have to rank first. So let's see what we get. Oh my God. Is that Matthew? Do you guys remember Matthew? I forgot about Matthew. Matthew seemed like he was going to be a big part of the story in the beginning of this season. People were saying that he had sort of serial killer vibes, which is mean, but also not entirely inaccurate, because he didn't really speak when he was hanging out with the guys in the men's quarter. Men's quarter? Can we talk about the terminology Love is Blind uses? It's like, are you in the barracks in World War II? Like, what is happening? Anyway, so the guys were all like, this dude is weird. But then he would get into the pods and he managed to convince 2 women to fall in love with him. 2 women who seem normal as you can be to go on this show. Also, though, Matthew might have seemed a little off because he later revealed after the show had wrapped on social media that he doesn't drink. So he was very nervous, which made me feel bad because I think that, first of all, you've got to be a real special person to go on Love is Blind and not drink, because I would think that being drunk is one of the only ways you can get engaged to a stranger through a wall. But anyway, because of Matthew's ability to make people fall in love with him, even though I don't know that he would be able to do that if he had to use anything besides words, he's S tier. Yeah, folks, I want this guy representing me in court. I think he would just like stare at the jury and like some terse words and they'd be like, she did nothing wrong. Okay, who do we have next? Who is that? Is that Brittany? I think I need my glasses. I like can't see who that is. That's Brittany, right? Yeah. Okay. Jesus. Yeah, there she is. I could just turn around. Look, I can point at these guys. It's sort of hard. It's like a mirror. Brittany. So Brittany's the one. Brittany got engaged to a man named Kenneth. They're both like 24, 25. She seems like a real sweetheart, but then again, this is reality TV, so who's to say? She and Kenneth they broke up. They didn't make it. I'm not spoiling anything when I tell you that. Brittany kept being like, hey, I would love it if you loved me. And he kept being like, it's interesting that you want me to love you because you might not seem like you're loving me. And she's like, what? I was asking you to love me. So Brittany lost every single argument. Every single one. Brittany, I'm sorry, but you are in the straight to jail category. I wouldn't stand a chance in court with you making my case. Okay, who's next? I love this. This is so fun. Oh my God. Who is that? Kenneth. Oh, speaking of Kenneth, Kenneth is the one who got Brittany to crumble under any kind of conflict. He is also remarkably calm, cool, and collected. Like, he broke up with Brittany, or she sort of broke up with him, or she was saying that she was sad about the way he was treating her, and then it turned into he just ended their engagement, and then he said, you good?
Sure.
Give me a hug so there's no bad beef, or whatever, and gave her a hug. She's sobbing. He goes right back to his phone. He's like, okay, and strolls upstairs. This man is a stone cold killer when it comes to arguments, but something slightly off there. He's not S tier. Like, I'm not going to pay this guy over $1,000 an hour, but if he gave me a good deal, I'd be like, you know what? I think I have a pretty good chance. He is Elle Woods. Kenneth is Elle Woods. He's really not, but okay. Who's next? I love going to the little bucket of people. Oh, is that Amy? Amy has one of those faces where I'm like, you could be Amy or you could be somebody else. I don't really have a ton to say about Amy. I'm going to be honest. She seems lovely. She's engaged to this guy named Johnny who has hair, and he looks sort of like Thomas Jefferson. If Thomas Jefferson were like Irish and shorter, I don't even really know what his hair, it's like George Washington hair, but it's blonde. I'm talking too much about Johnny. We'll get to him. This is Amy. She's a lovely lady from Charlotte, North Carolina. All these people are, or they've ended up there. Yeah, I don't know. Let's put her in 50-50 chance because, like, I don't know enough about her to say whether this would work or not. So, sure. Right? I don't know. Who do we have? Johnny. Amy's fiance, Johnny. Do you see what I mean? He's got that hair. Like, he looks like if you put him in short little pants and an old-timey jacket and gave him a musket, he could be like a Minuteman at Patriots games. This man, he can't speak that well. I'm just going to be honest. I've never seen a contestant on this show use words wrong more. Like, he uses words that just don't mean what he says. He would be trying to say, like, to be honest with you, and he'd be like, to be emphatic with you, and it's just like, that's not what that means, Johnny. He's also mixed up a bunch of sayings. I wish I could remember them off the top of my head right now. Sweet kid, though. Sweet kid. Sorry, Johnny. Straight to jail. You're not getting me out of shit. Oh, Laura. Oh, my God. Laura. I don't know what her last name is. I don't know any of their last names. Doesn't Laura look like a lawyer? Like, look at that picture. She is... Did I look at the... Oh, I have to look that way. Laura looks like a lawyer. Laura looks like a lawyer who still uses the hashtag girlboss in 2024. She's like, I will get you out of whatever problem you have, and we can go to Pilates afterwards. She's mean, man. I'm going to be honest. Laura's engaged to this guy named Jeremy, who spells his name Jeramy, which should have been the first red flag, other than the fact that you're getting engaged to someone through a blue wall. But as I've said, maybe everybody's just a little bit drunk. She annihilated Jeremy.
You weren't at the parking lot of Lost and Found.
Because Jeremy tried to pretend that he was not out with another woman. He fell in love with two women in the pods, Laura and Sarah Ann. Laura's right here. She was at home while Jeremy went out and went to Sarah Ann's house until 5:30 in the morning. And when he came home, she was like, hey, were you at the bar that whole time? He was like, we sat in the parking lot and talked. And she was like, oh, did you? And he was like, mm-hmm. And he had sunglasses on and this dumb hat. The sunglasses hat combination that the gentlemen this season are wearing are, someone get these men a stylist ASAP. But anyway, she's like, take off your sunglasses. So he does. And she's like, I know that you weren't in the parking lot because you shared your location with me. So I checked where you were, and it turns out you were where Sarah Ann lives. Granted, that's not rocket science. It probably says more about how dumb Jeremy is than how smart Laura is, but she really just put together a very emotionless, quick, concise cross-examination. S tier, baby, yeah. If I could choose anybody from Love is Blind Season 6 to represent me in court, it would be Laura. She also, the meanness you want in a lawyer. I don't want a nice lawyer. I don't want a lawyer who makes other people like feel good about themselves. I want them to come out of there feeling like shit. Okay, who's next? AD all day, as Clay would say. AD is engaged to Clay. She almost got engaged to Matthew, though. Look at that. There he is. But then I think everybody was like, he seems a little weird. And so she went with Clay. I'm trying to think of the arguments that she and Clay have had. She's been pretty good. Most of their arguments, though, have been Clay being like, hey, I'm really scared that I'm going to cheat on you. And AD being like, I hear you, and I think we should keep fighting. And she sort of mind tricks him into like sticking with it. I do like the way that he's honest with her because it's sort of funny. Because if they can make it through someone saying, hey, I'm worried you're going to cheat on me, they might have a good chance in the real world. But I think AD's argument skills were really on display when they went to a barbecue and she grilled Sarah Ann. Not literally. She didn't like put her on the grill and then toss her onto a bun and put ketchup on her. But she did sort of. She cooked her because she was asking Sarah Ann, who was in the love trial with Laura and Jeremy, who we'll get to in a second. She's like, Sarah Ann, did you know that Laura was engaged when you sent Jeremy a message saying, hey, if things change, I'd like to date you? And Sarah Ann's like, well, it was a good message. And AD's like, it wasn't. And then Sarah Ann keeps interrupting AD, and AD's like, can I finish? In the way that I would want a lawyer to say that. I would want a lawyer to be like, I object whenever the other lawyer is saying anything. I clearly don't really know how court works, but I'm going to put AD in the Elle Woods tier. Okay, who's next? Jimmy, my dude, Jimmy is in over his head. Jimmy has no clue what's going on. Jimmy's lost in space. Jimmy's an astronaut. Jimmy has been set loose in the ocean. I don't know. Jimmy, I don't know that you should have gone on this show. It seems like you had sort of a nice life. You had a bunch of friends. Your family seems to love you a lot. But here we are. Okay, so Jimmy's engaged to Chelsea. Jimmy was in love with Jess, who we haven't gotten to yet. Jimmy broke up with Jess because Jess told him she had a child and she was a single mom, but she told him this after they had started falling in love, and Jimmy got so spooked. So he goes with Chelsea because Chelsea told him she looked like Megan Fox.
Megan Fox? You're saying you look like Megan Fox?
Which we'll come back to. She doesn't. So Jimmy, I would say he and Chelsea have a lot of arguments, and their arguments make me feel like someone put my brain into a blender, dumped that out into a washing machine, and then stuck it in a salad spinner. That's how much sense these people make when they talk to each other. But Jimmy usually sort of manages to kind of sound more logical than Chelsea, which is a wild thing to say because he doesn't sound that like, Jimmy reminds me of the lawyer who got me out of trouble in college. All I'm saying, Jimmy feels like a guy who maybe has shaken enough hands in his small town to convince the DA that if a college student, say, was charged with having a fake ID, which that said college student didn't know was a felony, feels like Jimmy could maybe get said student out of trouble by telling the DA that she's a good kid, and maybe the DA would be like, oh, what if said college student donated money to a youth center and we expunge her record, and said college student was like, cool, take all of my money from my summer job, and she no longer has anything on her record. I don't know if I should have said any of that out loud, but here we are. It was in the past and it didn't happen to me. That was my friend. So Jimmy, There we go. The lawyer who got my friend out of trouble in college is what that should say. Okay, can we move on? Who's next? Jess. Jess is Elle Woods. Put Jess right in that Elle Woods category. Jess pretty much verbally slaughtered Jimmy when he broke up with her. She said, you're going to choke when you see me, insinuating that she's very hot because she is. She said, you're going to choke. You're going to need your EpiPen when you finally meet me. And Jimmy was like, what? And didn't know how to handle it. And Jess gave this whole speech, and she wore a black dress, and she was just like, I poured my heart out to you. I gave you a letter that I wrote to the man who would be my future husband, which, can we talk about that? That's sort of that is a wild thing to do. And then to give it to someone on a dating show. I think she probably wrote that letter for the show. Gonna venture to take a guess. She's pretty convincing. She's savvy. She's manipulative in the way that, like, not necessarily in a bad way, but she can get people on her side. Also, she's hot. And I feel like people usually believe hot people. Like if Jess were to say to a jury the same thing that, say, Matthew said to a jury, the jury would be like, I'm going to believe Jess. Jesus, well then should I move Matthew out of the S tier? No. Leave him there. He's too intense. He's so intense that he stays in the S tier. I actually think they would believe him over Jess. Jess stays in Elle Woods. Also, man, I hope she shows up at that wedding in the finale. I hope Jess just crashes into Jimmy and Chelsea's wedding and Jimmy marries Jess instead. Okay, who's next? Oh my God. She's finally here, folks. She's here and she's perfect. Chelsea Blackwell. Chelsea has taken up so much airtime of the show that I actually know her last name, which is terrifying to me. I'm like, do you know how many brain cells have died in my skull over the course of the hours and hours that I have devoted to people that I do not know? But you know what? It's fun. I love it. Well, I'm going to be honest. I built one category for you and you alone, and that is would sabotage us both. Thank you so much. Let's drop her right in there. This woman drives me up a blue wall separating two pods, if you will. She picks fights with Jimmy that are the most asinine things. He went out. First of all, this is reality TV once again. I don't know what's true. I don't know how this scene was edited. But if we take it at face value, at how they presented it to us, Jimmy came home and he was like, hey, I was out for an hour and a half with my friends because it was one of my friends' birthdays. And Jimmy claims he hasn't gone out the entire time that he and Chelsea have been together up to this point. He comes home and Chelsea's sort of slurring her speech. You're like, has she had something to drink? Turns out she had. She had dirty martinis and got into a fight that was one of the dumbest fight. Like, talk about, this isn't even like brain in a blender into a washing machine into a salad spinner. This is brain into one of those centrifuges that they use to separate atoms. This was like, I came out of there being like, I'm 10,000 times dumber than I was before I watched this argument, and I also have no idea what happened. But basically, Chelsea was like, I'm worried you don't love me. And Jimmy's like, no, I love you so much. And she's like, I can tell you don't love me. You hate me. And he's like, what is happening? And she's like, I just want to be loved for who I am. I don't want to be with someone who does that. And he's like, who does what? And she's like, who goes out? I don't want to be with someone. And he's like, I was out for literally an hour and a half. And she's like, I deserve better. Folks, what are we doing? She would stand up in court and she would be like, her opening statements, the judge would go to her and she would be like, Your Honor, my client definitely did it, and I should be disbarred. So really, she should be below straight to jail, but I don't know. I feel like she does Jedi mind trick Jimmy enough to stay engaged to her that I mean, it might not be straight to jail, but it's like basically straight to jail. Jeremy with an A. You, my friend, lack the logic skills that you would need to. I mean, Jeremy, can I be real with you for a second? What were you doing? Why did you go to Sarah Ann's house and choose to share your location with your fiance to prove to her that you weren't there? You were like, hey, I wasn't there, and then handed her evidence that you were there. So straight to jail, my dude. Straight to jail. Although the scene where you, Jeremy, rode jet skis with Sarah Ann at the end of the barbecue episode, they had this camera, for those of you who haven't seen it, which If you're still watching this and you haven't seen Love is Blind, thank you so much. I love you. They had these GoPros mounted on the front of the jet ski, so it did made everybody look like Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? Where they have like the forehead goes up, and Jeremy did the best villain laugh I've ever heard. He's riding this jet ski with a life jacket on, which I'm sorry. I know it's for safety. I know you have to, but nobody looks cool, savvy, or even that interesting wearing a life jacket. So definitely not intimidating. And Jeremy's riding the jet ski going, ha, 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 ha. Did the producers pay him? Were they like, we'll give you $20 if you get on this jet ski and laugh? Or are these people just so desperate to be on television that they'll do it? Probably the latter. Okay. Yeah, it sure is. Sarah Ann. Straight to jail. Straight to jail. Nothing that woman ever said really made sense to me or interested me that much. And I don't think a jury would fall for anything she said. Oh, wait, let's do Trevor. Yeah, let's do Trevor. Trevor's tough, guys, because Trevor gave Chelsea everything she wanted. He was like, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're the only person I'm dating in here. And she was like, I choose Jimmy. Which, again, the self-sabotage thing. You get it. Trevor, though, allegedly it has come out that he had a girlfriend, a real-life girlfriend in the real world while he was doing this. He also had a mullet. He's also a bodybuilder. He scrubbed his Instagram before coming on this show, which is always a sign that something is up. I don't really trust this guy, but I don't know, to be honest, if I want to trust my lawyer. You know what I mean? I want my lawyer to play so free and loose with the rules as long as he convinces people of it they believe him, because I do not want any consequences here. Trevor's reminds me of the lawyer who got me out of trouble in college. It might be the mullet. Have we done Clay yet? No, Clay. There he is. Clay's the one who's with AD, who's in the Elle Woods category. Clay is the one who keeps being like, I'm scared I'm going to cheat on you, which I get it. He comes from a family where there's a history of that. It's got to be sort of scary to commit to someone in 4 weeks through a wall. Can we talk about the context of this? He's like, I'm scared that this timeline is too tight. And it's like, well, because it is. It simply is. But anyway, Clay, he's an entrepreneur. He has a lot of businesses. He works pretty hard. Seems pretty straightforward as a person. You know what? He also reminds me of the lawyer who got my friend, out of trouble in college. Mackenzie, though. I remember Mackenzie. She showed up at the barbecue, and everyone talks about Mackenzie, but we don't know who she is, so send me right to jail. Send Mackenzie to jail. Jail. Thank you for watching my tier list of cast members from Love is Blind Season 6 who I would or would not want to represent me in court. This has been Charlotte's Web.